Y'all, we live in difficult times. There's war, political unrest, the pandemic, poverty, families being torn, communities ripped by gun violence and people dying every day. Police, injustice, it's all bringing so much pain. But y'all, we can look inside our minds and we can understand who we are, become better, and do this thing like we've never done it before. But it all starts with our mental health, and I know we can do it. I believe in you because I believe in me, and I believe in us.
The failure part, that like you said, that's part of the process. Like that's really just a working with the course of the success meter, right? You got to have the fail. I'm sure with the podcast game, you know, there's been some failures, but through the failures you learn. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? It's the learning experience through it. So it's like my favorite scripture, Romans 8:28, all things work together, you know? So it's like even the downslope side, you know, when as much as you feared the failure aspect, it helps you in the long run because you learned from that, or it turned you from something that you weren't even supposed to do that put you on the track to where you were supposed to go, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, that failure piece is really just all a part of the process.
Yeah, you know what? Another thing I say about failure or your fears, I think when we were talking earlier about some of the things we hope for, talking about health, you know, fear of failing when it comes to health should be a motivator towards taking care of your health. Like doing the things you need to do to make sure that you're all right. Are you eating properly? Are you exercising? Are you getting sleep? Are you managing your stress? Because look, you know, I want to be around for a long time. Are you making time for things that are important? One of the things that's really important for me at this point is spending time with my parents. You know, they're in their mid 70s and they high functioning, they doing really well. But you know what? I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know that they've meant a lot to me. They've poured a lot into me, and I want to spend more time and have more experiences with them because the majority of my memories are before 25.
Right.
And it's like, wait a minute, what about the stories? What about the experiences now? You know, yes, one of the greatest highlights in my life is when I was a kid, man. I was playing football. We did a 44 dive. It was the turkey bowl.
Yeah.
It did a 44. I hit that hole, man. I ran up the sideline for a touchdown, and I looked down the sideline. My dad like, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, my dad ran down the hole, and I'm like, don't come on. I'm thinking to myself, he's about to mess the play up.
Like, about to interfere.
Parent on the field, 5-yard penalty, bring the touchdown back.
So like yeah, but those are important. But those experiences now, that conversation, those experiences, and doing a few years ago, we went to more than a few years ago now. We was in Boone, North Carolina. Went up to the mountains, Appalachians, and we went canoeing. Man, it was wonderful, man. The whole family, the kids, everybody, man, was out there just canoeing, man. I want to have more of those type of experiences, you know, because I think it's important because those memories, man, are what you're going to carry with you the rest of your life. And so building those and stuff like that, you know, I'm always fearful of not doing that. But when I think about the fear, it's not necessarily a negative thing because it motivates me to want to do and put myself in position to do that.
Yeah, that's actually a tradition I'm actually trying to set in my family. We haven't done it yet, but around this holiday time frame, I want to get away from buying all this material stuff.
You really own that, boy.
I am, man.
but you know,
But I'd rather use those resources and put it towards like a family vacation.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
like
Need more.
us coming together, getting the grandparents together, and man, just taking that hard-earned money and taking a cruise, a vacation, something together, rather than just buying some stuff that's gonna be underneath somebody's bed in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, those are valuable things. Like spending that time with people.
Yeah, you know what? My daughter says she wants a PlayStation 5, my 10-year-old. And when she said that to me, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So how often do you play your Nintendo Switch?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You feel me?
well, if you give me this, I promise I'll play it every day.
Of course. And then them grades gonna be trash.
Still, we want to get you.
Like, hey, look, you want the good grades or you want me to play with this PlayStation?
Right, right,
What you want me to do,
You
Dad?
said you wanted me to play with it more.
Like, all right,
I skipped
man.
school today to play the PlayStation.
You know what I'm saying? This was your investment.
Yeah, all that stuff. But you know, another a fear, but a hope, but yet a fear of mine, man, is this whole idea around there's so much violence, and I really want to speak to like worldwide, man, and I think there's time for us to really step back and realize that war is not the answer. You know, we got to ask that question because I don't want to take sides. I'm on the sides of humanity, realizing that all life is important and that I don't care what tradition, ethnic background people come from. They have a right to live, man, and have a right to prosper. And violence, at the end of the day, doesn't solve the problem. It is the most primitive thing that human beings can do. I mean, a 2-year-old knows how to be violent. But it takes a man to really understand, or a woman to truly understand that at the end of the day, learning how to compromise, learning how to create treaties where we can live in peace, that's what really matters.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this related to that, because I remember having a conversation one time with my uncle, man, and I was telling him how, I would ultimately want like world peace and, there to be no gun violence and things of that nature. And he was just telling me, well, son, like all significant change that came in the world came through bloodshed. So he was just saying, like, even when you think about the civil rights era or things that happened, like, it took some people to die. It took some people to, stand on the front line and risk their life for that significant change that happened. Even though I'm with you, I'm thinking like, man, I wish we could somehow figure out a way to do this with some sensibility and some peace. But can you really truly get to the significant change that needs to come in the world without some sort of violence or something to happen like that? I'm not saying, I'm just posing it as a question. Like, is that possible?
So I would like to believe that it's possible, but I think if we really took time to understand our history, and I think a lot of times we look at our life like, how should I say it? Like it's a picture, and we don't look at life like it's a motion picture. And what I mean by that is we tend to focus on what's happening in the very moment and not realize how we got to a place. And so has violence really worked for us?
Right.
Because it feels to me that the reason why we have to be violent throughout the world today is because of previous violent activities. And then it's just this vicious cycle that keeps going over and over and over again.
Right.
And every time there's a violent experience that ends, it ends because people come back to the table and they talk and they solve it. So then I'm like, well, if we went through all that just so we can come back to the table and talk, then why couldn't we do that in the first place? And one of my greatest fear is we won't ever figure that out, and ultimately the world will end because we never figured out that the only way we could really ever all truly exist is to learn how to coexist and figure out how to respect people's differences, their different religions, their different ideologies and stuff, and understand it's really not a threat to you unless you make it a threat. Now, and I also think that I believe in capitalism, but capitalism has to work in a way that it works for the majority of people. And I think one of the challenges with our world is sometimes we don't do things in a way that works for the majority of people. Right. And so this distresses the environments that people live in. And there's all this chaos and confusion because we keep people distressed and divided. And so it's like, why is that going? Why is these people fighting, man? You know, some of the primary wars that we talk about in the world, those wars are actually brothers and sisters. They're family members fighting each other. If you study their histories, they go way back.
Yeah.
But they can't get along.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that it's true that we are here because of war, bloodshed. However, do we have to keep doing that?
Yeah, you got to get to a point where it's. See, like, this is the thing. People be so passionate about things and let that completely dictate how they move through this life. And some of those people are so irrational with it that it's like nothing can be different or nothing can stand in the way of me seeing not just my life, but everybody's lives around me exactly how I think it's supposed to go. We should be able to step back beyond that. And like you said, respect. I just don't understand why it's so difficult for people. Like a white man walking down the street, I don't know nothing about him or really care. Like, he might not like black people. He don't say nothing to me. I don't care. Like, he might be gay. What do that got to do with me? Like, he might be a white Muslim. I don't care. Like, none of this has nothing to do with me. It don't affect me. It don't take away from me. It don't change anything for me. Like, unless you are imposing something onto me,
Right.
I don't have no reason to have nothing. There shouldn't be no divide. The individualism that we experience, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. It's just everybody is just for themselves. Okay, fine. But again, you can be for yourself and don't have to be against everybody else. So I don't understand why it can't be just as simple as that. Because we are all definitely different. We all got similarities. We all got some core values in common, but we also got things that are different that we don't even have to go that deep into them to find out what they are for us to then be standing at each other like we opposition. Because for what, though? Just for what? Like, I'll never understand it because I'm just... It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's a connection to people's own connection to their own self-worth. You know, if you don't have the self-worth and see yourself in a light that where you don't feel inferior and you have enough confidence in who you are, then you won't look at somebody else in an opposing or a threatening way. You know, the only time like that I usually see those type of situations surface is when there's an insecurity about themselves. If I'm feeling some type of way about you, it's probably because I feel some type of way about myself. You know what I'm saying? Where there's an insecurity in me that makes me intimidated or feel some type of way when I'm in your presence. Because when I'm in your presence, it brings up something that's in me that you might not even know, but I'm holding it in my own self. And, you know, going back to what you were saying, too, about, you know, I look at, like, gun violence in America, right? And I look at, like, you should see gun violence in these schools as a reason enough to eradicate and get rid of guns in America. But for the people who are corporately making money off of guns and feeling it as an American right to hold arms, you know, they feel like it's more important to hold on to that, you know, whatever that they felt passionate about enough to feel like, oh man, I'm a gun owner. I need to be able to keep the right of having a gun, instead of being able to see the other side of it, that, you know, it's some young people who are losing their lives behind gun violence in America. It's almost like a selfish gain related to holding on to that, you know, Constitution, or holding on to that, you know, right to bear arms. Right. You know, so it's just about people's own idiosyncrasies and feelings within themselves, man, about things that I feel like is holding on to those.
Yeah, you know, the disease of the collective becomes the disease of the individual. And let me say this when I say that. the whole idea of the Second Amendment, I could be wrong, but I've been thinking about this here recently. One of the primary reasons why it became what it wasn't so much about the foreign enemy. It was the fear that slaves would revolt. And that if every man had a weapon, they would be able to combat the slave revolt.
Yeah, so, it was always more of them than it was y'all.
So they was afraid of that. So the Second Amendment, from that standpoint, I could be wrong, made sense. But the fear of what these slaves would do led them to feel like guns were more necessary. And that same idea is still permeating through our society. Not necessarily, of course, it's not about slavery, but it was founded on that particular idea. Wow. And because of that, it's still, it's still like this disease in our society. But people don't necessarily look at it like that now because they're out of touch with that reality.
The history of it. And
so it's like, wow, but that idea has been nurtured. It's been nurtured. In America now, everybody don't have access to healthcare. We're like probably one of the only first world countries where people don't have access to health. Everybody don't have access to healthcare, free healthcare. And you wonder sometimes, like in the 1960s, when there was so much segregation and division, because of that, big companies, insurance companies began to be operationalized to take care of people's insurance needs. But part of the motivation may have been because of segregation. And that dividing people's system still is what's dictating our healthcare system today. So when you divide people based on dumb things like race, you create a whole lot of problems. You reinforce the idea of hate. And I think there's good people, man, regardless, man. I have, regardless. And I enjoy spending time with people who are gifted and talented no matter what they look like.
Yeah.
But I also hope that people would receive me like I want to receive them. Because, listen, and the hope, this, racial divide will end. One of the things that people have to get over and accept, that most of the time when we say something is black, it is not because we don't want to accept something that's white. It's because what was white was done at the expense of us being black. Yeah. So I had to go to a black university. I didn't go to a black university because I wasn't allowed to go to the white universities. I had to live in the black community because I wasn't allowed to live in the white community. Look, I had to go to this hospital over here because I was black, or I had to go to this certain part of a restaurant because I was a black person, and not because I chose that. That was the only option I was given. And understanding how that divide created a world where we would be disconnected is so important.
Yeah.
A large part of that, what you're talking about, actually remind me on what we was talking about earlier, like when you was talking about, everybody having their different individual things that they do, their businesses, and not supporting each other on the familiar side. But I think a part of that we missed is the fact that by comparison to these other cultures and a lot of these other races who do operate family-owned businesses and pass them down generationally and so on and so forth, there's never been anything here that has shifted, broken down, or torn apart their family structures like we have had by comparison.
For sure.
So when you consider that, it's harder for us, you would expect, it's harder for us to even get together and do things on a regular basis. I see families and people of other races that get together every week. You know what I mean? Or everybody collectively gets together to work on just one business. It's not 20 people in the family and 17 of them is entrepreneurs. It's the grandfather was the entrepreneur and the whole 20 of them all work for or have worked for that family business and may have branched off. their dynamic is completely different. They actually have a level of unity that we don't. We have gotten to the points where our families are estranged all over the place. Example of myself meeting half of my family when I was a teenager because my grandfather appeared and then introduced us to the rest. And it's like, y'all cool or whatever, but I don't know y'all like that. It's not easy to then just meld these people into your life and create, like, we have all kind of crazy situations that happen.
Yeah.
You know, taking the fathers out of the house.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Like the welfare, crack, whatever that has happened in the past. All these things have impacted the family structure for African Americans. So we're not even on the same playing field when it comes to family, just togetherness as a whole, or even being on the same page with, you know, with even how we should operate as families, let alone trying to do significant things that could positively impact us generationally together, because everybody has splintered off so far.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that term, generational trauma, right? Where you got so much built up trauma that's happened over the course of decades of families, of lost, you know, absent fathers, or, you know, abusive relationships that have trickled down to our mentality on where, you know, we are currently, that's affecting the current state of family and black community as a whole. I think it's a mass need for therapy and our mental thinking, man, so that we can heal from all the past traumas to even be able to have a healthy future. Because if you're not healing from it, I'm looking at my current family that, you know, it's hard for us all to get together because of, you know, past hurts, you know, that we ain't got over. And some of this stuff is decades old, but, you know, the elders are kind of still holding on to things that happened when they was children, and sibling rivalries or whatever happened, that now the grandchildren are affected from not even being able to know who their cousins are.
Exactly.
You know, and not being able to have that type of close connection like we may have had, you know, at once upon a time, where now it's on top of the age that we're living in with technology and world moving so fast, where it got us all just kind of rapidly disconnected and moving in our own pace. I think, you know, like I heard this one brother say, you know, I think people are tribal by nature. So there's a aspect of it that wants to come together and knows that we should come together. But when you try to come together, it's that those feelings that arise, you know, that man, hold on, they did my mama wrong, or, you know what I'm saying, like, daddy wasn't around, so should I try to have a relationship with that side of the family now? You know what I'm saying? So I think when you try to mend it together without having the proper therapy and proper, you know, just getting over that generational trauma, man, it resurfaces itself in a way that, you know, makes it hard to get together.
You know, generational trauma, man, is such a powerful thing. Number one, generational trauma teaches us to not love ourselves, to look at ourselves in ways with messages that say that we're inadequate, we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not deserving. There is that bitterness that we hold against people from the past. And right now, I work with families that experience this type of trauma, but often what I'm finding is it might be from current generation with their children, but they have issues with their parents.
Yep.
And so now you got these couples or these parents who are raising their children, but they don't want to connect with their mothers and their fathers because of things that happen.
Facts.
Not realizing that they're overwhelming themselves and reinforcing the trauma. And how they reinforce the trauma is because we talked before about not forgiveness, right? Not forgiving. When you don't forgive, you tend to perpetuate the same attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors.
Absolutely.
And so then while you perpetuating the same attitudes and behaviors, you're teaching your young people, your children, to be angry and bitter and to have that same mentality, which leads to further disconnection.
Yeah.
And it just goes on from generation to generation to generation. But yet, the world is getting more stressful. And we know that one of the most important combatants to trauma is having a good support system.
Yeah.
Having someone in your ear that can encourage you and can esteem in you constructive attitudes and behaviors towards life. Like, having somebody say that talking about a wonderful life. Look, in a wonderful life, stuff is going to happen that you don't like. In the wonderful life, things are going to go the way you want it to go sometimes. In a wonderful life, people are going to do things to you because they're struggling, they are hurting, they are suffering, they're in pain, but don't take what they did so personal, because truly, if you really get it, that these are the things, this is all a part of what life is. Mm-hmm. So I waste my time taking things personal, then it affects the way I feel about myself. And now everybody that I have to take care of, I deal with, it's like a domino effect. They end up having the same experience that I had because I never understood. Just stop. That was this. That happened because that person was a certain way. Yeah. But that ain't everybody and everything.
Yeah. Right. And I think too, it's like, and that's why, like, I thank God I didn't have kids yet, and I mended the relationship with me and my father before I did. Mm-hmm. Because I can teach them now, like, about forgiveness and different things like that. But no, it's tough because, like, back to your point, like, for so many years, like, I wasn't going to, like, my dad's side of the family functions. Because I would walk in the room and I'd be like, yeah, y'all family, but y'all wasn't at my graduation. Y'all wasn't at my senior night. Y'all wasn't, not really about to be in here kicking it with y'all. Right. But at the end of the day, like, that's time we can't get back. So I can hold on to that, or I could just try to create memories with them as I'm older now. So I try to, like, approach it that way. But it is tough, and it takes, like, work. It takes, like, a really, really good support system, like somebody who's, like, older than you who can really, like, educate you and teach you about forgiveness in a real way. Yeah. It takes, like, therapy. Mm-hmm. It takes, like, the relationship that you have in whatever religion you practice, but it takes a relationship with God to understand that as well. And to not be like, oh, I forgive the person, but secretly still hate them. Like, I always tell this to people, you can forgive people 100% wholeheartedly. That don't mean you necessarily got to deal with them. But just don't have no hatred, don't have no strife in your heart. Because there's no way, I don't care who you are, there's no way you can operate like that at 100% capacity and operate like that in whatever you're trying to do if you got hatred and strife in your heart. Yeah. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. I don't care who you is. Line up whoever. It's not going to work out in the long run. Right. It's not going to happen. And I truly do believe that when I really forgave my father, like 100% forgave him, yeah, God opened up doors for me that I know wasn't going to open if I didn't do that. See? Because I feel like for so long in my life, I was trying to do things to prove to him, like, look, I did this, I ain't need you. Mm-hmm. So I would share stories with him, but I would do it in a way of, like, bragging. Mm-hmm. Not in a way of, like, trying to just, yeah, Dad, look at it. But I'm really doing it like, yeah, I ain't need you. Like, now what? Like, I did this without you. But then I transformed my mind and was like, you know what? Let me try to just share the success with him. And sharing it with him is him saying he proud of me, and I feel like he really genuinely mean it. And then I really, really forgave him and started sharing it with him instead of bragging. And I truly believe, wholeheartedly, God opened up doors for me. Yeah. That was never going to open if I didn't do that. Because it's like, I had a heart shift. Because it's like, how can God bless you with a hard heart? Mm-hmm. And know you going to take care of the blessing in a real way. You know, at the end of the day, like my uncle got his first car he bought. It's an old school. At that time, it wasn't an old school, but it's an old school. It's his first car he bought. He still got it to this day. Clean, kept it clean, no rust on it, nothing. Man, I pray he give me that car one day. But at the end of the day, if I can't take care of the car I got now, my uncle like, man, Neff always keep the car dirty. He's scratching up the rims. He don't keep the oil changes on it. Look, he got scratches all on the car because he don't know how to park. He not going to give me, because I'm not going to know how to take care of it. Yeah. So, like, if God say, oh, I'm going to give you this, and you mess it up, how is he going to give you more? How is he really going to enlarge your territory if you're not going to take care of it, or if you do it out of, like, hatred in your heart? So I feel like people got to just try to do better. I know it's tough, but, you know, like you said, like, you can't, things in your life going to happen good, things in your life going to happen bad, but just don't have any, like, hatred or anything like that, and try to be with your family as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, spend time with your family. Yeah. And you know, and what we're talking about now really goes back to that, even that more collective question about war and violence and having so much hate and dislike in the world, like where we can't live together. And I think we do gotta get rid of that. You know what? Check this out, man. As smart as we are, right? And somehow, or I guess we call them rocket scientists, they can come up with these bombs that could destroy us in moments. Mm-hmm. That's crazy that somehow our best scientists spend their time.
Greatest minds.
Greatest minds, we would call them on some level, are spending time creating bombs that would destroy us. And that bothers me, and because it goes back to our most primitive state. Like I said earlier, a 2-year-old knows how to be violent. It's instinctively in us, but to be greater than that, it requires more. And then I also realized that if it wasn't for the social emotional mind, maybe the world would have already ended, because you can't just have people that know how to put rockets together. You also have to have people who are socially, emotionally intelligent and realize the needs for people. That's why we need to have good ministry. That's why we need to have good writers and good teachers. A society could not exist just with engineers.
Yeah, no.
And lawyers.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't exist, or doctors, because those individuals sometimes they don't always have those other insights.
Yeah.
And so when you realize that we as a people need to find a way to say, hey, yeah, I know y'all had y'all differences, but let's try to think differently now so we can move forward, because it can be a wonderful life for everybody, man.
Yeah.
And we got to stop hating on each other so much.
Absolutely. Great artists as well, man. You know, I think art is a therapeutic thing within itself, right? Like the freedom of art, and to help shape people's thinking in a different perspective, from music to, actual visual art, man, like has the power of like shaping people's minds in a different, more free, more loving way. But to your point on the movie, I was just going to say one profound thing to add to your point about, the theme of that movie was just being able to shape your perspective and have an out-of-body type experience is what he ended up having. And
right.
Being able to see his life from a perspective of him not being there, and the people who he thought didn't appreciate him, how much they needed him really in their life, and how much he really meant to them in their lives. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of times, we have the wrong perspective on how we're viewing life, and not giving ourselves enough gratitude and credit for the things that we've done and accomplished, and from how good our really life truly is in comparison. You know what I'm saying? Like it's somebody out here who's suffering on a whole nother level than what your life is currently suffering, but they got more gratitude because they're just seeing it from a more simplistic level. And sometimes I think we overthink and overcomplicate our daily lives and put ourselves in such a rat race where we don't have a time to, like they say, smell the roses, be able to just appreciate the small things that you're achieving in life.
And being present. Hey, a funny point about that movie, man, of course, when he's reflecting and he's seeing life as if he was never born, mm-hmm. when he goes to the city that he lives in, I think it's called Poppersville or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. The name is changed. Okay. But one of the things I noticed really quickly about the city, it takes place in 1946. There's a whole lot of juke joints in the city. And there's a whole lot of black people there playing pianos and kicking it and stuff. And they wasn't there before. Oh, wow. They wasn't there before. I was like, what? Like, the first thing you see, you go in that place, and some big brother on the piano tearing it up, doing some jazz runs and stuff. Oh, wow.
Jazz was heavy back then. Huh? So jazz was heavy back then.
Jazz
not really anymore, though.
And he's like, what? Trying to figure out, like, where he at.
What happened?
What happened? and he went to the place where his savings and loans was, and it was like a club, and like it was jumping. And he was like, "What?"
City done went to chaos and partying while I was gone.
You realize you had to come back to the world so black people couldn't flourish. Like what? Oh no, we gotta right this wrong.
We gotta get out of here. Yeah.
Like, I thought that was so funny. I was like, "Oh no, they didn't." Like when it was 1946, man. So that was before my parents was even born.
Shout out to the Browns.
That was our last championship. Was 46.
Come on, now. We didn't have to do that. We didn't have to do that.
We are in Cleveland, so we got
Yeah, but you didn't have to
It was
do
a
that,
lob.
though,
I had
man.
to.
Gosh.
What was 46? The Browns or was it the Indians?
Not the Browns.
Browns.
The Browns won 46. Okay. So y'all would know that.
Crazy.
Or were we establishing?
I think established in 46.
Maybe
I
established.
think established in 46.
Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. Because Jim Brown won that championship. Was Jim Brown playing in 46?
Mm.
No.
he wasn't.
No. He'd be like a he'd be
He did just die though. So I
He
mean,
recently died.
right. But if he was playing in 46,
No, there's no way.
yeah.
I don't think he was playing at 46.
If he was playing in 46, he would have had to been in his 20s, 30s, and that means we talking about adding another
Yeah,
80 years on top of it. So
no.
46 had to be established.
established.
Had to be
Okay,
established.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, guys, this has been a really good discussion. I think when I'm listening to y'all, I hear some of our highest hopes is the health and well-being of our families.
Absolutely.
Obviously, to be able to maintain financially, you want to be able to do those things. You want to be able to spend quality time with your family, and hopefully that we will come together and be more community oriented. Mm-hmm. Changing our attitudes about holidays, where it's not so capitalistic focused. And of course, that we won't study violence and war no more. Right, Marvin?
You feel me?
Absolutely.
Any more thoughts, opinions, ideas before I run off the Poppersville?
I'll put this out there right
Right.
quick, just in the difference between the hopes and the fears. And this is something that I stated in some previous podcasts, but it's something that we got to always think about. Focus on your hopes, focus on your dreams, focus on your goals and the things that you want to accomplish, because they're all obtainable. These things are not far fathomed from being able to be accomplished. Majority of the things that I put out there as goals and hopes, man, I was able to manifest it and it came true. And on the contrary, the majority of the fears that I had didn't come to fruition. So I think a lot of times we fixate on fears that never happen, and it was something to the fact that we have all these thoughts, and majority of our thoughts consume of a lot of fears that never come to fruition, never happen. So don't even waste your time and energy and spirit on your fears, because a lot of times they don't happen. And even though fears and failures do occur, it works out for your good in the end.
So, and just to clarify, you don't mean not acknowledging your fears, but you don't want to be so focused on them that they control your life.
They control you and stop you from movement.
Gotcha. Sounds like a good one. And you know what? In our next episode, we're going to talk about some words and the power that they play on our destiny. But that will be in the next episode. Please like us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments in the comment section. I know y'all like to say a lot of things about Maul G, BKYs, and my boy Reese over here, but it's all good in the hood. I'll holla at y'all later. Peace out.
Peace.
And happy holidays.
Peace.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.